All right. As I stated, we have a special guest, Steve Patrick, on the show with us today with Level the Playing Field. So, Steve, thanks for joining the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And Steve and Miller have known each other for a while. So it's just great. You know, it's a small world. It's great we can all connect like this.
Yeah, we've known each other for like 13 years.
And you guys are still friends, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, Steve, for those who don't know you, the way I found out about you is through Miller. Miller owning and running a roofing company for years, told me about Level the Playing Field. I went to the Facebook group and thought, wow, there's thousands of members and there's great tips and insight here on how to deal with all the issues you deal with as a roofer. So kind of give our listeners and our viewers kind of the background story on who you are and how Level the Playing Field came about.
Yeah, about 22 years ago, I was selling those point of sale machines. You know, you swipe your credit card. And as working for the bank, I would get a cut off of every swipe. So I wanted to sell to roofing companies because I know that they had a big ticket item, or like car dealerships, right? You put the whole roof on your credit card, and I would make a cut, a small percentage off of every swipe. And so I would go and talk to roofing companies. And I talked to this one roofing company, and the guy said, no, I was in Plano. He goes, no, I don't need one of those swipe machines. I've been in business for 30 years. I've never needed one of those. And 30 minutes later, he had bought two. And he goes, I want to hire you to sell roofs. I said, no, man, I got the best deal going in the world. You know, this residual thing going on. And like 2 weeks later, the bank I was working for sold out to another bank. And the new bank says, oh, by the way, we're starting everybody out at zero. You lose all your residual clients that you had built up. And I thought, they could do this to me again sometime in the not too distant future. And I said, okay, well, forget that. And so I went back to this guy in Plano and said, is that deal still on the table? That particular individual, he's a general contractor. He had a handyman business, but he understood the roofing business. He understood how to deal with insurance adjusters. And he taught me really well. The guy knew his stuff. That guy's problem, though, is that he was a liar. He's a con man. So on the one hand, he really knew his stuff and he was a very good teacher. On the other hand, he would constantly lie to my clients, and my clients would catch him lying to them. And they would say, Steve, why is your boss lying to us? So eventually I had to strike off on my own because I couldn't put up with the lying to my clients all the time. So I started Steve Patrick General Contracting. And Chris Foster was working for me at the time, and he came to me and goes, hey, why don't we start a business, Cornerstone General Contracting, and I'll handle the money and the billing and all the stuff you hate to do, and that'll free you up to do only the stuff that you love to do. And I go, deal. So that's how Cornerstone General Contracting came about. Cornerstone still exists. Chris is now a home builder, and Cornerstone General Contracting is the home building company over in Fort Worth, and he builds multi-million-dollar houses. I mean, some of the nicest houses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Chris is now building. And it started out as a little roofing company, selling asphalt residential roofs back 22 years ago. So that's how I got started. And I did contracting for about 7 years. And about 15 years ago, we had a dry spell in Dallas. There was no hail or no wind for 2 years. Very unusual for Dallas to go through a period of time with no storms. Very unusual. And so unusual that we were doing bathrooms and we were doing kitchen remodels. I mean, you know that things are slow when you're in a woman's nest. And both Chris and I had gotten our adjuster's license, not because either one of us wanted to be claims adjusters, because we didn't. We got our adjuster's license so that when you get up on the roof of one of those borderline roofs, you can pull out your card and say, hey, I'm an adjuster also. And sometimes you could get the roof bought back then anyway. In fact, I got lots of borderline roofs bought that way back in the day, pulling out my adjuster's card. And then we had that dry spell with no storms. And all of a sudden, 15 years ago in the fall, there were 3 hurricanes that hit Florida, one right after another. And the third one was Hurricane Ike. And that's when Chris said, hey, why don't we're sucking wind here in Dallas. Why don't we go, we have our adjuster's license. Why don't we go work the hurricane in Florida?
Hurricane Ivan. It was Ivan, not Ike.
No, Ivan. It was
Yeah.
Ivan. You're right.
Uh-huh.
It was
Yeah.
Ivan. That's right. Ike was in Houston.
Ike was Houston. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought, wow, that makes perfect sense. And it had never occurred to me to be an adjuster because I didn't ever want to be an adjuster. And so the only thing I had to learn is I didn't know the software. I'd never seen the software. So there was a learning curve on the software. I mean, I could scope property losses. That was easy. I could do that in my sleep. I've been doing that for years. And so, and talking to people, I don't have a problem doing that. So my learning curve was learning IntegraClaim. That was pre-Xactimate day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody's using IntegraClaim.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into adjusting. And then I worked, I think Hurricane Wilma and then Katrina hit.
Yeah.
And I worked like 9 months and I was field training adjusters in Hurricane Katrina. And so I did like 3 months of wind and 6 months of flood claims. And then Ike hit in Houston. And that's when they made me a general adjuster. A general adjuster is someone who can handle the complex multi-million-dollar claims. I handled school districts. I had a high-rise hotel. I had a mega church. I had several big, huge hotels and motels that I had adjusted in Hurricane Ike. And then I worked, most all the hailstorms and hurricanes since then. During that period, right after Katrina, I started my own claims adjuster, licensing and training school. So I had noticed that claims adjusters were pretty poorly trained and they didn't know how to scope property losses. And you know the old saying, find a need and fill it, build a better mousetrap. So I started my own school. And so I was licensing and training claims adjusters, how to properly handle claims. And I was doing that for a bunch of years. I started doing appraisals probably about 15 years ago. No, that's not true. 20 years ago. I started doing appraisals 20 years ago. And about 5, 6, 7 years in, I had so many appraisals coming in and I had so much work with the school that I was just like crazy busy. And I had to decide between the two. And so I decided to stop doing the school and do appraisals. And that's when Vail Training Solutions contacted me and they wanted me to become an instructor for them, which was cool because I wasn't so busy with my school. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of Vail Training Solutions. They're in Arlington next to Six Flags.
Yeah.
They're the oldest and most prestigious claims adjuster training school in America. And so, that was nice working there. I worked there for about a year and taught some classes. And then I just started doing appraisals full time. The thing that really, I read a book when I was there at Vail. It's called Delay, Deny, Defend. I highly recommend you guys read that book. It's hard to come across a copy. Delay, Deny, Defend. And what occurred to me when I'm reading this book, I was trying to be a change agent in the insurance industry. I was trying to help teach claims adjusters to be more thorough and be more accurate and to account for all the damage and how the damage actually had to be correctly, properly repaired to maintain best practices, construction best practices, teaching those sorts of things. Most claims adjusters don't know those sorts of things. And when I read this book, it occurred to me that I was wasting my time, that the insurance industry didn't want the claims adjusters to be accurate and taught well. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, yes, they did. They spent a tremendous amount of money training their adjusters. And even like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it occurred to me, about 5 years ago, it occurred to me after reading this book that the insurance industry doesn't want their adjusters to be well trained. They want them to do what they're told. And those are two very different things. And I realized I was wasting my time. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not getting any younger and I don't have time to waste. So I said, fine, I'm going to go back to my roots and I'm going to train contractors and public adjusters and even the plaintiff attorneys who are humble enough to say they don't know everything, because Some of those guys have the God complex like doctors. They think they know everything. The ones who are willing to listen, I'm going to train them how to deal with unreasonable claims adjusters. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now. I think I probably spoke to around 10,000 contractors live last year. This year will be far less because we're not speaking to anybody live. So, but that's what I do. I go around, I've had private trainings as few as 3 people. And I've had large groups as large as 3,000 with Win the Storm and everything in between. And usually the audience that I typically speak to is somewhere between 1 to 200 people. And so about 3 years ago, somebody mentioned to me that we ought to create a Facebook group and run it like a forum. And I didn't know what that was. I mean, I'm not really all that techie of a person. And so I looked into it and I told my business partner, Tony Rugas. Tony's been doing this 48 years, by the way. The guy has forgotten more than I know. I mean, he knows more about this business than anyone that I know. This isn't Killian Red, by the way. It looks like it. I just got to working out. It's protein.
Sure.
But it does look like Killian Red, though. Drinking on the job. So, so I told Tony, I said, hey, we need to start this Facebook group and do a forum. He goes, what's that? I said, I don't know. So I'm not kidding. I mean, it was just the Lord blessing us because I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know anything about it. And I told him, I said, if we don't screw this thing up, we might get 100, maybe even as many as 200 contractors get on here. And so just, a few weeks ago, we topped 9,000. And it's just crazy. I mean, compared to some of those people on, on Facebook, they have groups of 1 million people or something like that. But, for our little niche, however you want to pronounce it, of storm restoration contractors, primarily, I mean, we have some fire guys and some water restoration guys in there and such. But for our small little slice of America, it's not a bad little bunch of group.
Oh.
I teach contractors to stop seeing each other like the guy down the road from you. Stop seeing that guy as your competition and rather see him as a brother in arms, and we can all help each other out. So that's really what our Facebook group is. It's a group of contractors who come together as a band of brothers to help each other out. So if I have an issue, like let's say an adjuster is acting in a particular manner, or I need to identify some building, some type of construction or some type of building material that I'm not familiar with, I can go on there, and there's 9,000 contractors on there. And out of the 9,000, probably 10% of them, which is 900 contractors, are actually experts. Imagine a group of 900 contractors that are experts, and you need some expertise in this area or that area. So you make your post on level the playing field, and boom. Not only do you get an answer, but sometimes you get answers from other guys. Some of those guys know what they're talking about. Some of them don't. You have to be discerning. The old saying, keep the chicken and throw away the bones. So, there's 9,000 people on there. Some people on there don't know what they're talking about. So you do need to be discerning. But it's an opportunity for people to post their questions. You could go back and read all the old posts going back years. We've been doing this for like 3 years or something like that. There's a search bar. Let's say that you're having a problem getting an insurance company to pay to redeck on a roof where the decking is delaminating, let's say. So you can go over there and type in decking in the search bar, and all the posts that were posted about decking, you pull up all those posts, and you can go and you can read those, and you can educate yourself in, really rapid form, reading through those old posts. And if you have a follow-up question, then get on the forum and post your question. And then everybody pitches in and we help you out. It's just an online band of brothers where we help each other out. Instead of seeing each other as competition, we see each other as a band of brothers, and we all help each other out. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it's a great community. I love it. The last post I looked at, a guy had a story of a roof he went and looked at. He wanted to meet the adjuster out there. Adjuster shows up and he's like, hey, I'll go up on the roof with you. And the adjuster's like, no, I'm going to go up there by myself and I'll talk to you afterwards. Then the adjuster hit the road after that and didn't talk to the roofer. And the roofer has all these pictures and has this list of things that are wrong with the roof, should easily get paid for. Adjuster comes back and says there's minimal damage. And the guy has pictures and he's posting on your Facebook page there and Level the Playing Field saying, hey guys, what do you think? And there's like, 100 comments of how to deal with it. So it's awesome to have that kind of community. But let's take a step back. When you talk about, okay, you started selling roofs, the guy was a liar, then you started a general contracting company, you're in the roofing world, and then you got to being an adjuster. But what was the pain? Was there one incident or was there a season where you're like, you know what, this is just messed up and I've got to go out there and I've got to spearhead this thing that's going to help people learn how to deal with this wacky process of trying to get roofs paid for by the insurance company and how difficult it is? Was there a specific incident? Was there a seasonal? What caused you to be so stirred up about that to go forward with this thing?
Reading that book, Delay, Deny, Defend, because I didn't want to believe that what the insurance industry was doing to consumers and lowballing the estimates and omitting legitimate and reasonable line items, lots and lots of legitimate and reasonable line items. I didn't want to believe that it was systematic. I wanted to believe that it was a claims supervisor here, a claims manager there, and they're bucking for a promotion and they're trying to keep their claim numbers down. I didn't want to believe that it was systematic. And then when I read the book, Delay, Deny, Defend, it occurred to me that it was systematic. And at that point I said, okay, fine. I'm going to teach contractors how to deal with jerks, people that are acting like jerks, what to say, how to ask questions skillfully, listen carefully, negotiation skills that the average person doesn't have. They don't know. And our industry is filled with blue collar guys. So they have a tremendous amount of common sense, but they don't have any higher education. The vast majority don't. And so I spend all day long, every day, teaching contractors and public adjusters and the plaintiff attorneys that want to listen and teaching them how to deal with unreasonable people and even unscrupulous people, how to deal with these guys and how to get results. And nothing works 100% of the time. For example, one of the big things is the insurance companies like to separate out overhead and profit from pricing with our industry. And once they've done that, it confuses the consumer because they don't know what overhead and profit means. And once they've separated that out, then they say, well, we don't owe for that. There's no industry in America that separates out their overhead from their price that they sell their goods and services for. And they certainly don't separate out their profit and say, well, we're charging 12%, 15% net profit. This is our margin to the end consumer. No one does that. And the insurance industry thinks that they can force that down our throat and force a particular format of pricing down our throat that benefits them because they have a conflict of interest. They have a financial interest in how much is paid to us to do the work. And so I teach contractors how to overcome that. And it's a very valuable thing to know.
So when dealing with overhead and profit issues, especially here in Texas with storm damage, and I mean, a lot of our business has to do with getting insurance companies to pay for roofs and how much they pay for and what's on that list and what's not. What's the best piece of advice you have for contractors dealing with that overhead and profit issue?
Oh, the most important thing that I teach, hands down, the most important thing that I teach is a pre-adjustment conference. Is when you sit down with the homeowner or the commercial property owner, as the case may be, about 2 hours, so everything is fresh in their memory. Sit down with them about 2 hours before the adjuster is scheduled to show up. And you're going to educate them about the claims process. You're going to teach them how the claims process is supposed to work, So if the adjuster comes out and does something other than, then they'll be able to pick up on that really quickly, that the adjuster was supposed to do this and he's doing that instead. And it's an issue of setting expectations with the property owner. And if you set expectations ahead of time, then when the adjuster does nonsense, the consumer then can stand up for themselves. They're not standing up and being on your side, the contractor. They're standing up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, no, that isn't right. I don't have to go out and get 3 bids. Mm-hmm. Where in my policy does it say that I have to go out and get 3 bids? I already have hired a contractor. Why would I want to go out and get 3 bids if I've already hired a contractor? Where in my policy does it say that I have to do this, such and such? Or where in my policy does it say I have to do that, such and such? And if they start asking those kinds of questions, where in my policy does it say I have to qualify for general contractors overhead and profit? Where does it say that? You know what? The adjuster doesn't have an answer for that because the policy doesn't say that. And so the consumer can ask a question like that, and it puts the adjuster back on his heels. He's so used to just saying whatever he says, and there's an assumptive authority as if he's wearing a badge or something. There's an assumptive authority from the consumer. Well, if the adjuster says such and such, it must be true. But rather, we teach consumers to ask questions to make sure that what the adjuster says is, number one, true. For example, an adjuster says, well, that's just my company's internal policies and procedures. When exactly did the consumer agree to be bound by the carrier's internal policies and procedures? They're not bound by those policies and procedures. If they are, so the consumer can ask that question. Where in my policy does it state that I'm obligated to obey your company's internal policies and procedures? Show me in my policy where it says that. Because if I am bound by your company's policies and procedures, I need the manual. Send me the manual of all the rules that I have to follow. And if you're not going to send me the manual, then obviously I'm not bound by your company's internal policies and procedures. And so therefore, stop trying to put extra contractual obligations on me and trying to make me follow rules that I'm not obligated to follow. Imagine a consumer saying something like that to an adjuster, and the adjuster realizes that his feet are firmly planted in midair. He doesn't have any ground to stand on. That what he's been saying all along is nonsense, and it's never occurred to him before that it's nonsense. But when the consumer asks these questions, and all of a sudden they go, wow, you know what? That's a really good question. Anyway, so that's what I teach. I wrote a book called Level the Playing Field. It's about 250 pages or something like that. Half of it is written for the consumer to educate the consumer what's going on with their insurance claim. And the second half is written to the professionals, the contractor, the public adjuster, the plaintiff attorney, anyone who's working in the industry, to educate them how to deal with claims adjusters and how to get clients the maximum legitimate settlement for their claim.
That's
I had an instance like that where I had the presence of mind to prepare the customer ahead of time that, hey, if the adjuster says this, what he's really saying is you need to get 3 estimates for each of these 7 trades that happened on your house. And I told her this, 30 minutes before the adjuster got there. And she was a young mother. She had 2 or 3 kids at home. Her husband worked in downtown Fort Worth, some engineer guy. And so I told her that. I said, hey, if he says, when I ask him, are you going to pay me overhead and profit on this claim? If he says no, he's asking you to get 3 estimates times 7 different things. Okay? She's like, okay.
For free. Yeah.
And so the way it's supposed to work is they're supposed to pay me to go and coordinate all this stuff. So when I asked the adjuster standing just inside of her door, So, this is a complex loss. I'm going to coordinate all these repairs. Are you going to have my overhead and profit on there? Well, unfortunately, fill in the blank with how this has changed over the years. Used to be
Sure.
3 trades, and it's, well, if there's a leak, and then, the complexity, now the coordination. Whenever I asked him, he said, no, we're not going to pay that because of whatever his reason was. And it was like you lit a fuse under her. She went off on this adjuster.
Good.
Like, what do you mean I have to go and get 3 estimates for all of these different things on my house? I'm a mother. My husband works full time. I do not have the time to do this. And he kind of left with his tail between his legs. And he didn't pay it, but I got a phone call after we did the work from some other higher up. All right, well, where do we need to be on this? I'm like, well, it's 20%, and they paid it. But it was from having that conversation ahead of time with the homeowner to make sure that they understood what was really being communicated. Otherwise, it just goes right over their heads. It's so French to people that don't deal with it every day.
No question that educating the consumer and setting expectations with them will get greater results. I'm talking about educating them what's legitimate and reasonable, not lying to them, not misleading them, not getting them. I'm talking about straight up, above reproach, what's true and accurate and what's real.
Mm-hmm.
Only asking for things that are legitimate and reasonable, and including nothing on your estimate that isn't. Being above reproach. No, stop telling little white lies. Stop adding to the truth. Stop, stretching the truth. What's the third word in the phrase little white lie?
Lie.
We've all done it. Anybody who says that they've never lied in their life, that's the biggest lie that they've ever told, is that they've never told one. BS, right?
Yeah.
So the question isn't whether or not we're liars or not. How many lies do you have to tell to be a liar?
Just one.
Right? So we're all liars. So there has to come a time in your life where you draw a line in your sand and you say, never again. I will never tell another lie again. Listen, no matter what you sell, consumers buy from people that they know. That's marketing. They have to first of all know who you are, that they like, and that they trust. And if you're telling lies or misleading the consumer, how long is it going to be before they find you out and they don't trust you?
Mm-hmm.
So do you want referrals, or do you want to have to knock on doors the rest of your life?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want referrals, then what you do is you turn the client into what Paul Reed refers to as a raving fan. And they're such a raving fan of you that they tell everybody that they know about you because they're a raving fan, because they like you and they trust you a lot. Because you've gone above and beyond and you've exceeded their expectations instead of going around and lying to people, which is what a great number of people in our industry do. There's lots of people in our industry that are liars, cheats, and thieves. It's the reason why we have such an uphill battle. Well, one of 2 reasons we have such an uphill battle with the insurance industry is that our industry does have a lot of liars, cheats, and thieves in it. Right? I mean, why do we pretend otherwise? I mean, we're going to be an ostrich and stick our head in the sand. But conversely, so we call out the liars, cheats, and thieves in our industry. When is the insurance industry going to call out the liars, cheats, and thieves that are acting as claims adjusters on their forums? When are they going to, when one of their guys gets arrested, when are they going to post it on their forum? Look at our guy. See, we do that all the time. Don't ever do business with this guy because he's a liar, a cheat, and a thief, and he's been arrested. And so now we know another guy in our industry to never do business with. It would be refreshing if the claims industry would do the same thing. And if they're going to pretend that they don't have any, then they're either grossly incompetent to believe such a thing, or they're colluding with the industry. I don't know. If an adjuster goes out and he says, I can't see any damage when the damage is legitimate, then either the adjuster is incompetent or he's colluding with the carrier to deny legitimate claim benefits. If there's a third option, I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
if he's incompetent, then the consumer shouldn't have to be dealing with an incompetent adjuster. And if the guy is colluding to steal from the consumer, then the consumer certainly shouldn't have to deal with someone like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that aren't used to the, roofers that aren't used to this, and they're thinking, gosh, and now I'm going to have to take time and I'm going to have to educate my customers. Do you provide resources like some sort of template, or do you give coaching and tips on how to educate the customer and how to make that a concise process that any roofing sales guy could do?
Yes. I have an entire chapter in my book, Level the Playing Field, that teaches you how to do pre-adjustment conferences. I have an entire chapter in my book. By the way, I give the book away for free. I have an entire chapter in my book on how to write smart estimates, how to write an estimate. And so as contractors, we know which line items the claims adjusters are going to omit and the ones that they're going to include. Like they're going to omit starter and hip and ridge as an example, right? It's no surprise when you get back an estimate from a carrier and they've omitted these two line items. So when you include these line items in your estimate, then what you want to do is you want to write a sentence or a paragraph or whatever in the F9 notes. Click F9 on your computer and it pulls up the notes. And you type a sentence or a paragraph, or you can already have it already pre-typed if you want to have a template or a macro in Xactimate. And where you explain and justify the inclusion of every one of those line items that you know that they're going to omit, not based on your opinion, but you explain and justify using facts and evidence. And the gold standard for evidence is objective third-party source material. So in your F9 notes, you want to be concise and you want to provide credible facts and evidence and explain and justify the inclusion of the line item. It's the exact same thing I used to teach claims adjusters, because they have a file examiner that's going to review their estimates as a claims adjuster when I upload my file with all my photos and everything. If I knew that there was going to be a line item that the file examiner may have a question about, I would explain and justify using facts and evidence. I'm teaching the contractors and the PAs to do the exact same thing that I used to teach adjusters to do back in the day, so that the adjuster, what it does is it greases the rails and it makes it easy for the adjuster to say yes, because you've given him the entire argument that he needs to make the argument with the file examiner to get it approved. You've done his job for him. So what? So what's our objective when we meet a claims adjuster? To frustrate the adjuster, or is our objective to make it easy for him to say yes?
Mm-hmm.
Our objective is to make it easy for him to say yes. So we create smart estimates. We visit with the consumer beforehand, and we set expectations. We educate them as to how the process works, because the consumer has no idea what to expect. And if we're not the ones setting expectations, then the claims adjuster will be. So who has the consumer's best interest at heart? Nowadays, the majority of the time.
Contractors.
The professional contractors, not the liars, cheats, and thieves. They have their own best interest at heart. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the professional contractors out there, the ones who carry insurance, the ones who actually have an office, the professionals. Those guys have the consumer's best interest at heart.
So for guys listening to this or watching this on YouTube, you think about, okay, this guy is clearly credible. He was an adjuster himself. He has what it takes to teach me these things. What would you say is the best outcome that occurs when people start doing this?
Actually, I've had contractors come out and tell me that it completely transformed their business. So I got a call about 9 months ago from this young contractor. He sounded like he's probably 25 years old. And on the phone, he told me that he did 1.5 million last year by himself. That's pretty decent, 1.5 million in sales. His lights were just turned off. and he didn't have the money to pay his light bill, and he's going to have to borrow money from his mom to pay the light bill. I said, you're doing the work for claims proceeds, the amount that the insurance company has lowballed to do the work for. And he goes, well, yeah, aren't we supposed to? And the guy was broke. I mean, $1.5 million in sales, the guy should be swimming in money. One-man shop. He should have, even at a 10% margin, that'd be $150,000.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could live on a single man can live on $150,000 if you tighten your belt. I mean, if you had to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, especially if you don't have kids in daycare.
Net, yeah, even at a 10% net, you should be making a 15 to 20% net in this industry, minimum. But even at a 10% net, he should have made $150,000.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing. He could have worked at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Pay his light bill.
Yeah.
At zero risk, zero liability. Because when you're a contractor, you have a tremendous amount of risk and liability. You could have a guy fall off the roof and break his neck. Do you have workers' comp? Do you have, do you have, what if one of your crews damages the customer's house? The ladder crashes through a window, right? You're going to have to come out of pocket or your insurance to pay for that. And if you're not making no money, and so I'll be in front of I do a lot of classes for Owens Corning. So I'll be in front of a class, recently I did one in Indianapolis and one in St. Louis. And there were between 100 and 200 people there. And so I ask a show of hands, how many of you guys know what your net profit was in your business last year? Let me see your hands. 3% of the room, the hands went up. How many of you guys know what your profit was on a percentage basis? One hand.
Wow.
One hand in the entire room actually knew what their profit was on a percentage, like 10% net or whatever, right? How many of you guys track your salesman's closing ratio? There's 4 different closing ratios. Do you know what they are? Most of the guys didn't even know the 4 closing ratios that they should track. Cold calls, leads, referrals, repeat business. So when I was going through them, I said, okay, cold calls, leads, referrals, and what's the last one, guys? And hardly anyone said it. Repeat business. That tells you how much repeat business they get. They didn't even know that there was such a thing called repeat business. How about that?
So bad.
And so they're not tracking their numbers. They don't know what their profit ratio is. So I liken it to a doctor, okay? There could be a doctor who is just a phenomenal physician, but the guy's a horrible businessman and he goes out of business and he no longer has his doctor's office and he's working for a hospital somewhere. Why? Because the guy's a horrible businessman. He could be an excellent physician. You could be just one hell of a roofing contractor and not be making no money because you don't know to run your business and you don't know how to run your business.
Yep.
So you'd sure better, these are blue collar people for the most part. We're blue collar people. I have like 10 hours of college. I'm a blue collar guy, right? So what do? I'm a voracious reader. I have like I bought like over 50 books on the art of persuasion and influence. And I've got about 30 of them left that I'm going to read. And so the average millionaire reads 50 books a year. So I'm a voracious reader. So I'm going to educate myself so that I learn these things so that I can actually be the best Steve that I can be. Because if I'm not going to be the best Steve that I can be, then I'm just going to be mediocre. And I don't know about you, but I have no interest in being mediocre. I want to be extraordinary. That word is made up of 2 words, extraordinary. And people better figure out what the extra is. Otherwise, you're just going to be ordinary.
And so if somebody hooks up with your training or buys the book and starts trying to practice these principles, Is there a success story of a company or a particular contractor you've worked with where they started putting these things into play and it resulted in X number of additional revenue in a given year? I mean, what kind of success story do you have to motivate people listening to this right now?
So there's a fella in St. Louis, Missouri named Edgar Gonzalez. I actually met Edgar because he's also he's on the board of advisors for the American Policyholder Association, which I highly recommend that you guys join. So I met Edgar. He's a member of the advisory board, and I met him at one of the board meetings. And he's implemented every single thing. He took my book, Level the Playing Field, and he just studied it. And he read through it like 3 times, and it's all highlighted, and he studied it. And he's on the forum on a regular basis, and he implements, and then he learns. And he stood up at a class that we gave a couple, like probably 9 months ago or something like that. And man, he just went on and on by the fact how little money he was making beforehand, and he didn't even know what his profit margins are, and how much he's making now, legitimate profits, not illegitimate stuff, but legitimate profits, and how it's transformed his life. And all he's done is just implemented these common sense things. This isn't rocket science. I mean, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to implement stuff that works and be consistent. And it works. So study the book, join the forum. So you can download my book for free. All you have to do is text the word ebook, no hyphen, just 5 letters, EBOOK, to the following phone number, 214-496-5182. Again, text the word ebook to 214-496-5182, and then I ask for your name and the phone number and your email address and the name of your firstborn child. No, I'm kidding. I don't spam anybody. And if you want to join our online forum, which is our online band of brothers, Level the Playing Field, you can do that. The Facebook forum, you have to have a Facebook persona with a login and all that. I don't actually do Facebook, but I have one for the Facebook group, for the forum. And so you can text the word forum, FORUM, to that exact same phone number, and you can join our forum for free as well.
That's awesome. It's a great forum. And it's so true what you said. And I think the crazy thing about all this is the homeowner doesn't have a clue what's going on.
Not a clue.
We really recently worked with a family member of mine. He's getting his roof done. It's a 70 square roof. It's a big job. And how much did we add to the claim, Miller? 15 grand, 17 grand?
Yeah, I think it was about 25, and our supplement was for low 40s.
Yeah. So we're going back and forth. And of course the homeowner doesn't have a clue about whether this stuff should be added or not, what should be involved, how much it should cost. There's just no frame of reference. So I walked the homeowner through the fact that this process, the original claim info you get is really the first offer from the insurance company. And that's coaching and training I got from Miller, because Miller's been in the roofing industry for over 20 years. And so just going through that process, and we're battling it out, trying to level the playing field, so to speak. But it's just incredible to me that the homeowner comes out of pocket with the same amount of money, and yet there could be $15,000 worth of work left off the list. And so that's what we're going through now. And so we just really appreciate what you're doing with that. And before we bring this to a close, tell us real quick about the training you have coming up and why people should check it out.
So I can't do live training anymore because of social distancing, and we can't have seminars. So what we're doing is we're doing webinars. I've had people that encourage me to do live streaming and webinars prior to the COVID-19 thing. And I really enjoy doing live seminars. But since we can't do that, we're doing webinars at this point. So we're doing one next week. Let's see, it's the 14th of May. We're doing a class on general contractors, overhead and profit. It's about a 6-hour class, and then we'll probably have around a 1-hour Q&A afterwards. It's not unusual for there to be at least an hour of questions that folks we'll probably have about 100 contractors that are online during the live stream. And we're also going to have it that if you sign up for it, and if you want to log in with your credentials and watch it a day later, you know, a week later, something like that, you can do that. It's really smart to do that, because the second time you watch it, the third time you watch it, you'll pick up on things you didn't pick up on the first time. I mean, you guys are probably, you've noticed that before on different trainings and classes that you pick up on things. And so that's the first day, is the general contractor's overhead and profit. By the way, so I have a book that I wrote on general contractors overhead and profit. It's I've invested probably around probably about 200 hours writing that book, 50 pages. And we include it for free. You can't buy the book for any price. You offer me $1,000 and I'm going to turn you down. I don't sell the book, but I give it away if you attend our overhead and profit class. So you can get the book for free. So our live classes, the real seminars, we give away the physical book, and the classes that we do, the webinars, we email you a PDF of the book, and then you can take it to Staples or Office Max and print you up a copy. If you're like me, you like to have a real book in hand when you read it, as opposed, if you want to just read it on your device, you know, you'll get the download when you attend the class. We're throwing in a bonus class on Friday, the 15th. It's going to be on the appraiser umpire course. And so if you'd like to do appraisals, and we definitely need more good, highly qualified appraisers. If you'd like to learn how to be an appraiser or an umpire, spare time, part-time. I started out 21 years ago doing appraisals, spare time. And then next thing you know, I had a number of contractors referring me clients, and then I'm doing it part-time. Miller starts referring me some of his clients, and it blew up, and it was a full-time business there for a while, me doing appraisals. Not everybody wants to do it full-time, but you know, there's worse things than having a spare time business where you can make $150, $175, $200 an hour in your spare time and help consumers get a righteous outcome on their claims. I mean, what a great deal. So that's the second day. And we're going to do both days for $4.95. And that's not $4.95, by the way, $495. And so if you'd like to attend you don't have to attend both classes. You can attend just one day if you prefer. You can sign up at our website, gcont.com, just like General Contractors Overhead and Profit. So it's, write this down, GCOAND, you have to spell out and, P.com, GCONP.com. You can't use the ampersand symbol when you're typing in a web address, you know, a URL. GCOANDP.com, and you can register for the class, $495. Every single class that I do, I give a 100% money back guarantee. I don't know if you've ever been to a class that's been a waste of your time and waste of your money, and you wanted your money back and they wouldn't give it back, and you feel like you've been stolen from. So we always put a 100% money back guarantee on all of our classes. Would you care to guess, Dylan, how many times I've ever had someone ask for a refund? You want to guess?
I'm going to throw 0 out there.
0. I've never had anyone ask for a refund ever.
That's awesome.
There's always the first time, but at this point, I've never had anyone. So our students must find value in what we're teaching. And you know what? When you give away the book for free and you give away the forum for free, people really appreciate that. And I know that. I mean, I understand human nature. I mean, I'm a student of human nature. By the way, read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Study that book. If you want to understand how, you know, this stuff keeps popping up on my screen. Sorry about that.
Hey, you're a popular guy. It's okay.
Yeah. If you want to learn how to deal with people, it's one of the most valuable skills you'll ever learn, is how to deal with people. It's been on the bestsellers list for over 70 years. Since like 1938 or something, I think. It's crazy. So I've read the book like 5 times, studied it. I just started reading it again recently. I'm up to chapter 3. Like I'll read a chapter and I'll read it a second time, and then I'll read chapter 2, and then I'll read chapter 2 a second time, and then I'm off into I'm studying the book, not just reading through it like a novel or something. And so I couldn't recommend that book highly enough as well.
It's so good. And John C. Maxwell has a book with a very similar title where he takes similar principles and adds some biblical principles to it. But I mean, truth is truth. And it's all about, if you're really interested in helping other people, it's reciprocal. So that's great. Well, Steve, I think it's awesome. Thank you for joining the Roofing Mastery program, because that's what our platform is all about, is just equipping roofers with the leadership, the education, and the tools they need to be successful and to scale and grow a successful roofing business, but not just financially, as far as their own leadership and character, the teams they build, the practices they put in place. And it's all about connecting people with the right people. And I mean, if I'm going to go learn how to shoot a sniper rifle, I want to learn from a sniper. And so you've clearly been there. You've been an adjuster. You've been on the other side of it. And now you're an advocate for roofers and for homeowners. And it's just awesome. So before we part ways, two things. What's one parting piece of advice, just the best advice you have for anybody at the tail end of this?
Well, I tell you what, if you're hunkered down at home and if in your city you can't knock, or you're going to go work a city where there's hail, because there's no hail in your backyard, and you're not allowed to knock, you sure better learn social media marketing, and you better learn it quickly.
That's right.
We were fortunate. We hooked up with someone who is Cullen. He's an expert in this. And I don't want to give you his name because I don't want anybody to go out there and try and get him to work for them as well. He's busy working for us. Like for every $1 we spent on Facebook ads, we made 10.
Wow.
10 to 1 ROI, return on investment, off of Facebook ads, because the person who is running them actually knows what he's doing. A lot of people have bad experiences and bad taste in their mouth because they hired people who don't know what they're doing. So get lots of referrals and testimonials from people that are in the industry that have actually gotten results, and learn social media marketing now, because we have no idea how long that people are going to be shut in their houses. Hopefully we'll be able to get out and do stuff, and there'll be some normalcy come back to our lives soon. But in the interim, since we actually don't have a crystal ball and we don't know how long it's going to take, I think that you would be very smart to become an expert in social media marketing very quickly. It's
so true. And for those listening, that's another thing that we're passionate about, is marketing for roofers. And one of our partners was a partner in a very large digital marketing company. They had over 300 customers, millions in ad spend every month. And we can definitely help people out with that. So I don't know how you're going to go about it if you don't have it. At the time of the coronavirus, if you don't have a quote digital door knocking strategy, I don't know how you're going to get ahead. So Steve, last thing, how can people what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me is probably, I don't do email anymore. I know it seems weird. I was wasting an hour a day swimming through a bunch of nonsense in my inbox and stuff like that. And I come to the realization I don't have an hour a day to waste on that. So best way to get a hold of me is to text me. And if you want to email me, text me that you've emailed me. So my cell phone number that you can text me is 214-244-2639. And just text me. Don't call me out of the blue, because my hands may be full. I may be in the middle of something like this. Like I've had several phone calls come in, and obviously I wasn't able to answer the phone. So the best way to get a hold of me is text me on my cell phone. And then as soon as I have an opportunity, I always get back with everyone. So, yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for that, Steve. And we really appreciate you being part of the platform and appreciate everything you do. And hopefully we'll send a lot of people your way to check out your training. And I know we've benefited from the training that you provided. And it's been the difference maker in our business as well. So thanks again for joining the program. All right. That's our interview with Steve. I love what he said about meeting with the adjuster ahead of time. We've definitely seen how that's played out in our roofing business with RainTight General Contracting here in Dallas. I like the fact that Steve is willing to give away free resources. He's got an amazing Facebook group if you haven't joined it already. I know a lot of you have, but if you haven't joined it already, definitely check it out. There's over 9,000 members. It's a very active group. I really like being a part of it because guys do ask good questions and they get a ton of great feedback. Also, Steve gave out his cell number if you want to text him and get, and just so you guys know, I mean, he's a big deal. He speaks at conferences to a lot of people. He does a lot of amazing things, and he's just a champion for the industry and a champion for those of us that are roofers. And I love what he mentioned at the end, that if you don't have a digital door knocking strategy, that you're going to get left behind, especially in days like we're in with the, at the time of the recording of this podcast with the coronavirus. But even if you're not, that's one of the reasons we launched the Roofing Mastery platform. I partnered up with my buddy Miller, who's been in the roofing business, owned his own company for almost 20 years. I come from a digital marketing background, and we partnered with another guy that owned a digital marketing agency with over 300 customers, a Google Premier Partner Agency. And what that means is you're in the top 5 to 10% of agencies in the whole U.S. for all of the things you can do, from the results that you get to the amount of ad revenue that you spend with Google. Google basically gives your digital marketing agency a report card, and it means you have an A+ rating with Google. So it's really hard to get, but that's the expertise and the kind of the clout that we can bring to the table as a company that's doing digital marketing for roofers. Would love to help you guys excel and kind of clear the fog. Frankly, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of snake oil out there with digital marketing. So if you have any questions about SEO, if you have any questions about website design, if you have any questions about reputation management, you can go to our website at roofingmastery.com. You can head over to the on the homepage. You can listen to the latest podcast episode. We've got some good ones on there from guys like Randy Brothers and Dave Sullivan from the Roofer Show. We've also got our marketing services here. You can look at our local SEO services, what we can do to make sure when people search on Google, they find your company in your local market. We've got services as far as again, with local SEO, we've got reputation management, which is a big one. It's an affordable service that, frankly, every single roofer should be doing to make sure they're getting reviews and they stand out from the competition. And you can look at other stuff like web design and social media and pay-per-click and stuff like that. But if you have any questions at all, just head over to our website, click on the Contact Us page, and you can reach out. You'll either talk to myself or Ryan or Miller. You'll talk to one of the three of us. And just we can do a free discovery call and find out what the best strategy is for you, and kind of give your web presence a report card and show you what you're doing well and what could be better. And so that's our goal, is to partner with roofers through the podcast to equip all the roofers that listen in the areas of leadership, marketing, and sales. And as far as this platform, the Roofing Mastery Marketing Platform, is just equip all the roofers that participate to win, to be effective in this craft, and to truly master their business model. So guys, if you have any questions, definitely mention in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And this is Dylan McCabe with the Roofing Mastery Podcast. I will catch you guys in the next episode. If you have any comments, please mention them there in the video.